All right. Hey, welcome to the Mentored Engineer. I'm excited you're here. This is my first ever real live stream broadcast. I tried it once a couple years back and it didn't work out so well. So let's see if this one goes better. All right, today, give me a second here. So today we are going to talk about roller coaster kinematics. And what is kinematics? Well, it's really just the study of how a particle moves through space. We don't consider the mass. Well, we do consider the mass, but we don't consider the volume that it takes up or where the centroid of that mass is. So a big thing for a very small, very simple concept. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Today we're going to do a brief introduction of who I am and why I'm talking to you about this topic. We're going to talk about our cart motion as it goes through our roller coaster. And we're going to talk about basic kinematics and then move on to advanced track design so we can get smooth transitions. And finally adding turns and rolls. Now you see two coasters up here. The one on the right is my first real coaster. Full circuit. It's called the Black Widows. It's now been decommissioned in 2022 after some incidents with the initial turn and drop. Oh, hey, by the way, now I'm thinking about it, we have a live studio audience here as well. So make yourselves known. Yeah. All right. And please feel free to put some stuff in the chat. We're going to go for about an hour today, and then I'm going to open it up for questions and hopefully get all your questions answered here. So please put them in down below in the chat there. So the Black Widow was decommissioned because it had one too many accidents on the turning drop right there. The coaster on the upper left there is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion, which utilizes what I'm going to teach you, advanced track design to a T, to make that barrel roll drop smooth and glossy and just awesome. So let's get to it. All right, so my name is Corey Rasmussen. I'm a Baylor grad of the class of 2002 with a Bachelor of Science of Mechanical Engineering. I got my professional engineering license in 2009 and currently hold it in North Carolina and Texas. In 2018, I founded my company, Rasmussen Designs, which is the sponsor of the Mentored Engineer, where we specialize in mobile equipment design with an aerial lift focus. So these are the guys that go play with power lines and stuff of that nature. I also do a tremendous amount of hydraulic design and troubleshooting, and just like to answer general mechanical engineering stuff. So I started the Mentored Engineer soon thereafter in July of 2018, and my goal is to provide resources to the next generation of engineers so that hopefully they can shorten their learning curve and build upon what the generations before them have come up with. So, but most importantly, and I mean most importantly, I have been on love affair with roller coasters since I was a young man. I've been on 238 unique coasters, maybe a few more like kiddie coasters that I've been on over the years, but not new to them. My first coaster was built in 1993 when I was in 8th grade. It did not work out too well. I was young and inexperienced, hadn't taken a single engineering class at that point. And our only one rider ended up falling off of it, so that was not a good thing. Back in 2020, I built my first full circuit coaster here, and that's what you can see up in the upper right-hand corner. And that was a great coaster, right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Excellent. So built that, and then as I mentioned, it was decommissioned in 2022. And we replaced it with the Widow's Revenge, which we'll see a little bit of it at the end. And now I'm currently building Tilly's Terror. I hope some of you are following that in our coaster building series as well. If you're not, you can go to Rasmussen Designs, you can go to mentoredengineer.com slash roller coaster and keep up to speed with what's going on in that. So here is a video from our roller coaster. This is my 7-year-old son at the time riding it. Let's go.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's awesome. Ah, good times, good times. Okay, so let's talk about kart motion. All right, it seems pretty simple, right? We all seen a train. It's got a couple wheels. It stays on the track. It works. Well, it's not all that simple, especially when you transition from a freight train to a roller coaster. We now have 6 degrees of freedom that we have to account for. 2 of them are accounted for right here. And it's the heave, which is up and down loads. The sway is side to side. And the surge, we let that one free. That is the front to back motion. We actually want our train to ride on the coaster tracks. All right. The other 3 we'll discuss in the next slide. But you can see if we zoom in on the first, the front right bogie there, we can see 5 wheels, and there's another hidden 6th wheel underneath. We have 2 down or road wheels, we have 2 up wheels, and we have 2 side wheels or guide wheels. So the side wheels will take care of the sway, the up and down ones will take care of the heave. Now, why do we have 2 wheels in each of those positions? Well, for one reason, we want to balance loads. When I look at the rear axle, where I'm more heavily seated on, and that's going to have higher loads, I want my loads to be even so that I can distribute that over 2 sections of my PVC pipe. So you could, if you think about it, the PVC pipe will squish and deform, and that takes up a lot of energy. So if I put 2 wheels that are equally spaced from a pivot point, it'll balance that load, dividing it by 2. And the other thing it allows me to do is follow the track. So as I go up over a hill, it will follow the track, and the side wheels and the down wheels will remain in position. All right, let's complicate it, right? We've got to do that. So now we're going to add in the other 3 degrees of freedom. One is pitch, and that's up and down. You have yaw, which is about the vertical axis, and that will be left and right turning. And the last one is roll, where we're going to, if you imagine being in a hammock, we can roll around in that thing. When you try to get on and off of it, it's a challenge. So let's start with roll. We obviously don't want this to be a hammock. This is not the Snow White and 7 Dwarfs ride at Disney World, where you know, you're in a cart and it kind of swings. We actually want the car to be rigid. But if we were to go into a bank turn, we have a front axle and a rear axle. We want our front axle to pivot and our rear axle to remain with the track. So I will show you exactly how we do that so that you don't end up with a getting into the hammock situation. For the yaw, that's the turning. It's not like a shopping cart where the back 2 are fixed and the front 2 can turn. All of our wheels must turn, and there's 2 main ways. There's 2 main ways that you can do that. I'll discuss that in the next one. And then finally, the pitch. We need the down wheels and the up wheels to follow the track. You can get by with the up wheels only having 1 up wheel, so it doesn't follow the track. But there's a lot of reasons why not to do that, and that's definitely outside of the scope of this video. All right, so let's look at our coaster up here on the top left. This one uses something called bogie steering. And let me use the mouse for the first time. I'm going to turn on my laser pointer here. You can see here that I've got a solid axle going across, which means that my wheels are always a fixed distance apart from each other, and it pivots at the middle here with this vertical bolt. So that accounts for my pitch on the axis. There's also another bolt here that's may actually be hidden that goes horizontal, And that allows for the roll. This part can go up and down, and this part will react accordingly. This is called bogey steering, and it's a very good way of doing it. One of the benefits is the track spacing is constant, but we're going to need to expect something called hunting. Now, hunting is where, if you imagine a kid playing bumper bowling, and he just throws it into one side of the lane, and then it bounces back and hits the other side, and then it keeps bouncing back and forth, and eventually goes off to the end. That's what we're doing here. And this happens on straightaway sections, where it will start bumping into each side of the track. So that's something we do experience here. We can do that. We can minimize that by reducing the amount of straight track we have. And the reason it doesn't happen in corners is we can use our side wheels to push up against one side of the track always. And we can do that by angling it less than it needs to be. So that'd be the bank angle. That's less than it needs to be. On a ride here, like Top Thrill Dragster, which is now defunct and replaced by Top Thrill 2, you can see here it's got a vertical pin, and there's most likely a pin running horizontally through the center of the car. Now you can see how the car is designed that it does not pivot in the center like mine does. It's got this vertical pin here where it does pivot. So that's pivoting at each of the four corners, and this is called Ackerman steering. Some of the benefits of Ackerman steering is we get higher track clearance, which is great for putting things under the track, in between the track, like tire drives and brakes, other types of stuff like that. The bad part about it, and the reason I didn't choose it for my coaster, was in all four corners here, I'm going to have a vertical post, and that post is not movable. So if I have a length of straight track right here, that's 20 inches apart, that works great. But when I go into a corner, I now need to make my track 3/8 of an inch, or 0.3 inches less wide than I do on a straight track. And that gets into a fabrication nightmare for me. I just don't want to be doing that. I don't have the tools for making it accurate enough to do that. But I can go on there with a 20-inch fixture or even a tape measure and say, okay, this is 20 inches apart. That's where I need to be. Let's make it work there. All right, so moving on there, you can see here, this is my rear axle. And the way I get the roll out of it, but still allow the yaw, yaw is turning, roll is the hammock thing. I've got a vertical pin here where the bogey, the lower one, can actually pivot. And I take out the reaction here on that, the two yellow bearings there running against this blue crescent shaped plate. That allows the back of it to be to take the hammock part out of it while still allowing it to turn. Now, in my first design here, I wasn't smart enough to put two front wheels. I thought, well, if I'm sitting here, I got 2/3 of the weight going to the back and 1/3 going to the front. And so I just need one wheel in front, two wheels in the back. Hey, it'll work, right? Well, actually, what happened was, as I go over a hill, the front wheel will actually come down like this, and it'll ride on top of it. But my guide wheels actually came off the track, and it actually bound up the first time we went over one of the small ejector hills, and it pinched the track, stopped the cart, put some excessive loads in there. So what we did was we redesigned it to follow the track using a very similar method as to what you see in the rear. So why is what RMC uses traditional bogies? Because they have to keep the spacing constant. I don't know the very reason, but I know they like that manufacturing. If you've ever looked at an RMC, it's got a big spherical ball joint in the middle. Very ingenious way of doing it. So yeah, I don't know the exact reason, but I imagine that would be part of it. They want to keep as much modularity with a traditional wooden roller coaster. All right, let's go into basic kinematics here. All right, this is, once again, the study of kinematics is treating our cart as a single part that doesn't have its own mass and doesn't, we don't have to worry about the rotation of it or the momentum shifting. All right, so if you've ever taken a physics course, you probably studied kinetic and potential energy. We know that in a roller coaster, there's a constant exchange between our kinetic energy, which is motion energy, and it's defined as 1/2 of the mass times the velocity squared. So the faster you go, the more velocity you have. Well, no, that's by definition. The faster you are going, the more kinetic energy you have. Opposed to that is the potential energy, which is energy stored due to height. And this is defined as mass times gravity times the height. The higher you are, the more potential energy you have. And we can see this on a traditional Intamin hyper giga coaster. Let's just use Fury 325. Hopefully everybody's familiar with that at some level. You go up a 325-foot lift hill into a large drop, and you change all of that potential energy at the top into kinetic energy, and you build up a speed of about 95 miles an hour. And then you go up another hill, and you slow down as you change that kinetic energy back into potential energy. And we can say that our total energy of the ride, TE, is equal to the kinetic energy plus the potential energy. And this is true at all times, except for the fact that we have friction. Well, friction is a big thing. So if you can imagine on a big coaster, you have a lot of wind resistance. You also have other forms of resistance, such as the wheel bearings will build up heat. If you ever go to a park in the middle of summer, there's a lot of coasters that have water jets spraying on the wheels in the station to keep them cool. That all heats up. There's energy there. It needs to be dissipated and gotten rid of. Also, the track tires, since they're plastic, will deform. That's where a lot of energy comes up. And the track itself will deform, whether it's the whole structure or even just the tubes of the track squishing down. That is energy that is put into the steel and released that is not given back into the system in the form of speed or energy. It's just dissipated. So on my coaster here, I found out that we had about a 4.4% energy loss. And the way I like to think about this, because I can't think of a better way to do it, is we're going to lose 4.4%, or 4.4 feet of lost potential energy per 100 feet of track. If you want to think about me sitting 100 feet of track at an angle, one of the ends would have to be 4.5 feet taller than the other just to get the coaster cart to roll down. All right, so let's look at the spreadsheet that I've made. And this spreadsheet is available on the website. If you go to mentorengineer.com/rollercoaster, you can sign up there in the form. You get on our coaster building mailing list, and you will get this. I think it's in the first or second email that comes out. It's a whole series of going through how to step-by-step build your own coaster. Man, I'd love to see more coasters. It really does, thrill my heart when I see people, contact me saying, I'm building my own coaster. This is what I'm doing. And even taking, one guy told me the other day that he was going to put a chain-driven launch on his coaster, and I thought that was really cool. So excited. Keep let me know what you're doing out there. All right, so this is the Black Widow coaster, and I put here different points on the coaster. So this is the top of the lift hill, is the bottom of the drop, the top of the next hill, valleys, hill, valley, all the way to the end. So here we're starting off with the height of 8 feet. And I actually have a negative foot here because the lowest part of the ride is actually lower than the station where I put my 0. And what I did was I specified that height. I specified the distance it was from the previous element. And so we're starting at the beginning. It's 0 feet. What's my radius up and down at that time? And what's my radius side to side? Now you notice here that I have 1,000-foot turning radius. And the reason for that is if I want a straight piece of track, it's closer to 1,000-foot radius than it is to a 1-foot radius. So the bigger radius there, the better. About 1,000 is where the math starts even factoring that in. All right, so here in the last two ones, everything that's not blue is calculated out. So this is the potential energy, this is the kinetic energy, and this is the sum of the two, the total energy. Now you'll notice here that I keep, as I go on to the next thing, where I'm a foot or a quarter foot off the ground, I have a track distance of 20.5 feet in between. I have a radius of 9 feet and a turning radius of 10 feet. I have a lot less potential energy and a lot more kinetic energy. And my total energy has gone down, and that's based on that 4.4 foot of lost potential energy per 100 foot of track. And I can go ahead and calculate all this stuff down through all the points that I want. On the other side of this, just a continuation here of what you saw, I calculate out things like the velocity with the drag, speed in miles per hour. So my theoretical max speed here was 14.3 miles per hour. It takes 2 seconds to get from the top of the lift hill to the bottom of the other hill. And then I can start calculating my centripetal force. So this is how much am I going to be pushing into my coaster cart. And we'll generally measure this in the form of g-forces because I don't want to care about how much mass I have. I just want to know what the how much times my weight I'm going to feel. So at the bottom of that hill, theoretically, it's 1.5 Gs from the radius. But since we're in we're on Earth, we're going to have a force directed downward on us all the time. And then anything in that radius, it's going to add or subtract from that. So for our vertical G's, we actually have to add in a factor of 1. And then we're going to take our centripetal acceleration divided by the gravity constant, which is 32.2 feet per second or 9.81 meters per second squared. All right, so that's how we calculate our total G's, our total vertical G's here in this category, and it looks like our max is 2.4 right there. We also want to calculate our lateral G-forces. So when we're going around a curve, how much G-force are we experiencing? So you can see here at the bottom of our turn, that's the most we got, and that's 424 pounds with the maximally loaded cart. From that, we can calculate our bank angle, which is our horizontal G's divided by our vertical G's. And then we'll take the inverse tangent of that function, and that'll give us an angle in degrees. And we can calculate our total G forces that from the vertical G's and the horizontal G's. And our biggest here is at the bottom of the curve at 2.9. And like I said before, if you want to download a copy of this for your own coaster, go ahead and click on this link right here. Well, you can't click on the link, but you can see it. It's mentoredengineer.com/rollercoaster, and there's a form there. Go ahead and do that. I think the first day or two, it sends out the form. So I say this to tell you that this probably tells you about 1 to 2%, maybe even 3% of what you really need to know about your coaster. It'll let you know if it's going to get all the way through, but it's not going to make it smooth. It's not going to make it pleasant. For that, we need more oomph. So let's talk about advanced track design. And this is where the fundamentals of transitions come into play. Now, if you look here, these are 3 aero coasters, and I'm not doing this to brag on or rag on aero coasters because they did do some tremendous work in pioneering coasters. They were the first one to use steel tubular track. The first coaster was the Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland, which I think was opened in 1965. So they go back a long way. They've now been defunct for 25 years, but two of these three coasters are still going. Hey, if you want to shout out what they are in the comments, that'd be awesome. The bottom right here, or bottom left, sorry. Anybody here in the peanut gallery, I mean my live audience, know what this one is?
I know where it is, I just don't know what it's called.
Where is it?
Isn't that Busch Gardens Williamsburg?
Yes, it is Busch Gardens. This is the Loch Ness Monster where you got two interlocking loops. This top right one here, unfortunately, kiddos, you never got to ride it, but let me tell you, behind it, there's the Beast, and there's my son's favorite roller coaster, the Racer. This was Vortex up at Kings Island. It got torn down the year before we ever got to ride it. Bummer. But I was told this was very unpleasant, but you know, with all coasters like this, it had a great following. And this coaster I'm actually going to be able to ride tomorrow. This is Carolina Cyclone. It now has a different paint job. I believe it's white with like a light teal blue track now. It looks pretty cool. And they are all known for really, really bad transitions. The elements when you're in them aren't bad. It's getting in and out of those elements that's really the hard part. That's why another defunct coaster now, Anaconda, wasn't very liked. It was pretty good for the first half of it, but it was not liked once you got to the second half, and it just kind of wandered around and nobody knew what it was really doing. All right, so let's get into it. And I swear that this is not a math class. We are going to use math. We're going to use some calculus theorems, but leave the heavy lifting to me. So don't worry about it. Yes, Viper at Magic Mountain is fun. I remember I rode it the year it opened in, I believe it was 1989. It was one of my first big looping coasters. All right, so we're going to talk about the theories of calculus. So here we have a chart. Imagine that we're in a car. You could even be driving it if you want. Where you're sitting at a red light and time 0, when the light turns green, comes. You step on the gas here with this brown acceleration curve, and you get up to 40 miles an hour, and you let off the gas very quickly, and you coast, and you're still going from 0 to 40 miles an hour, and you keep going. All right, does anybody want to be in this car? Peanut gallery? Does anybody want to be in this car? Get to the light, stomp on the gas. All right. No, you don't want to be on it. The reason for that is there's an unwritten third thing. But before we do that, I want to talk about the first. We said that these are all related. So position in this case would be your odometer. It's not on here, but as you do this maneuver, you would start off here and you would have a parabolic increasing curve up until here, and then you would have a straight line coming off where your odometer keeps running up at a linear rate. So they're all related because they're all related by calculus, in which if I take the area under this curve right here, I'm going to get this line. If I take the area under this line, I'm going to get position. And those are integrating and derivating of each other. My point here is to tell you that they're all related. Don't get caught up in the math. So let's look at why that would not be a comfortable thing to endure. All right, it's because of the third derivative here, which is called jerk. And for once, we are not talking about me. You can laugh. It's okay. You know how... All right, so the harder I step on this accelerator, the higher this change right here is going to be. If I have a perfect car, let's say, I can step on the gas and it gives me all the power I want. There's no limits on the engine, the car. The car has no mass, so it can accelerate very quickly. that spike could theoretically be infinite. All right. I did make my change over a smaller time period just so you could see how this worked. But as you drive a car, you know after the first or second time you accelerate that you need to step on the gas very smoothly. So this curve, the orange curve, is going to ramp into this and then get up to my if a foot's to the floor, it's going to be right there. And then as I get up to 40 miles an hour, which is my target velocity, I'm going to start letting off, and it's going to be a very smooth transition there. All right, so we want to minimize that jerk, and that's my whole point here. So let's look at something where my jerk would be really bad, like a perfectly circled loop. Anybody want to say whether or not this is a good thing or bad thing?
Bad thing.
Has anybody seen a perfectly circled loop on a roller coaster?
Nope. No.
Nope, and there's a very good reason for that. Let's look at that mathematically. So using this formula right here, we are going to travel through our loop, and we're going to calculate the g-forces, which is the variable c here. So as we start, we're going down a straight track. We have one g-force pushing down on us. As we get into the curve, we have 5 g's at the start of the curve. That's a tremendous increase, right? 1g to 5g in a split second. Nobody likes that. All right, then we get up to the top and we go to negative 1g. Well, how did we get there? Well, in this case, I've chosen the best case scenario, and we're going to have just enough velocity to get through the top. So you're basically hanging at the top, and then you'll come back down to the bottom. All right, and as we go back to the bottom, our velocity is going to increase, so our g-force is going to increase. So we're back at 5 g's. All right, this doesn't sound comfortable, and then we exit it and we go back to 1g. So that, once again, that 5g to 1g transition. All right, that does not sound like fun. I don't want to be on that coaster. I don't want to think about that coaster. That's the very definition of whiplash. Now, wait a minute. It's going to get worse here. Let's add in another factor. Let's say this loop is 12 feet tall, and let's say it's a stand-up coaster, and my head is at 6 feet from the track. So 12 feet tall to here, and I'm 6 feet off the track. All right, that's exactly half of the loop height. So as I come in here, I get to the center of the circle, and I now notice that my feet are there, my head is there, my feet are there, my head is there, my feet are there, my head is there. My head just stopped, didn't it? Let's say I was going 20 miles an hour. My feet kept going, my head stopped. All right, that is not going to be comfortable. We have a term for that. All right, it's called whiplash. All right, and it's bad. Now, the closest example I can see of this is in this following video. This is the Blue Flash. Many of you have probably seen this. This is a homemade backyard coaster. I believe it was in Ohio. I believe it was transferred to somewhere in Indiana. Don't know if it ever got set up again. But let's look at this. This is put out by Coaster Studios, and it's Taylor Bybee riding it. And I want you to pay specific attention to the second time he goes through the loop, and let me know what you see.
World's most famous backyard roller coaster can be found in Bruceville, Indiana, and was built by a man named John Ivers. And even if you're not a coaster enthusiast, I am willing to bet that you have seen this roller coaster before.
Here it is.
It is amazing how much this has taken off, how viral it's...
All right, anybody see it? Let's watch it again. Oops.
World's most famous backyard
All right, watch
roller
the second
coaster
time.
can be found in Bruceville, Indiana, and was built by a man named
All right, it
John
looks cool,
Ivers.
right?
And even if you're not a coaster enthusiast,
That loop
I am
is
willing to
tiny
bet
and very
that you
circular,
have
isn't it?
seen this roller coaster before. It is amazing how much
right,
this
look at
has
that.
taken off, how viral it's...
All right, what happened there? Why is this a bad design? All right, you can see that he is almost the epitome of my example before, where it's a almost perfectly circled loop, and his head is right about where the center of that loop is, right? So you can see him sway back and forth, trying to dissipate that energy of his head stopping suddenly. This could be tragic if he had like an over-shoulder restraint or something of that nature, even maybe a 5-point harness where it's going to lock his neck in. I'm glad that he did not put a more than that seatbelt that's on there. All right, so how do we get rid of jerk? Also, again, not me. Sorry, honey, you can't get rid of me. I'm your jerk forever. All right, well, let's start off with some what we call boundary conditions. And these are things that we need to have happen to make this work. All right, so first of all, we're not doing a jump track. So when we meet two sections of track, we want them to touch each other, right? Okay, well, that's a good start. We don't want to do this. And the second thing is we want them to be tangent to each other. So we don't want track to come together and be separated like this. We want our track to start tangent, and then maybe we go into a radius up or down like I got here. All right, so those are the first two things. And then we want constant change in our transition. This would be meaning that the jerk doesn't transition anything like what we see here. There's no big spikes as it goes through. So ideally, our jerk will be 0 at the beginning and end of our transition. But we got to make some change, so we're going to make that smooth. Now, we're going to do math. Don't worry about it. All right, so the way we would do this is we're going to apply a constant here, C1, and we're going to set our intercepts at 0 and some distance that we're going to call S0. Now, S0, or S, is our variable for how long our track is. So the mathematical form is this, and then if we multiply it out, we get this second equation. Once again, just get the ideas, not the concepts. We're then going to integrate this to get our acceleration. So here, you can see our acceleration. We have our C1 term, and our two terms there, and then we have our C2 term, which is caused because this is what we call an indefinite integral. Now what we have to do is we use boundary conditions to solve for C1 and C2. Our boundary conditions are our initial acceleration right here is some value A0. Our final acceleration at the end of our track length, S0, is going to be linked to some variable. And then when we solve for C1 and C2, we get these. All right, so what happens here is we're going to give an example here that over a 15-foot length of track, we're going to start at an acceleration of 3 Gs, plotted right there, and we're going to finish at negative 3 Gs, and we're going to make a constant transition between the two. Now this is something that I'm calling our universal equation, and we can now enter in initial and final accelerations for a track span and get our track to be nice. All right, so we have acceleration. Exciting. What do we do with it, right? More math? Anybody see more math in this future?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be more math. All right. So let's look at a loop. Now, if we think about it, we can give one portion of our centripetal force in a loop by the velocity squared over r, right? But then we need to account for gravity. Now, gravity in a loop, if I'm keeping my point of view relative to where I'm sitting, when I'm at the bottom of the loop, I'm going to have 1 times my gravity. When I go up 90 degrees, I'm going to have no gravity because gravity doesn't work this way. It works this way, in which case I don't care. And then when I get to the top of the loop, gravity is pulling me back down. So it's going to be -1 at the top. And then back down here, it's going to be 0 again. So if only there was a geometric function that would do that for me. Oh yeah, it's the cosine here. So the cosine of our angle, and our angle is simply, as we start here, we're at 0 degrees, then we go up to 90, 180, 270, and back to 360. And what we have here is a plot there of how we go from go through a loop. Now our velocity is always going to be changing, so we need to specify that, and we'll specify that by some initial conditions. So that's the equation you see right here, and I got a comment here from Logan Levitt about how do I calculate the drag here, and you can see it's right here. It's the efficiency times the length of track I've already run. But this other term here is calculated my velocity at any point based on my initial velocity and my initial height versus my current height. So I've got a whole bunch of variables in here. So the great thing about this is it works for both a launch coaster or a lift hill coaster. So if I have no height at the beginning, this will be 0, and I have all velocity, this will not be 0. Or if I go vice versa, where I have very little velocity going over a hill, and I have a lot of height, this will be big, this will be little. All right, so I got acceleration. Blah, blah, blah. Corey, stop with the mouth. I get it. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this equation, and I'm going to substitute in c times g for our acceleration, and I'm going to put that the rest of the equation there, and then I'm going to rearrange everything and solve for r. All right, and I get this equation. Spectacular, isn't it? All right, so I've got a radius. How do I know what my radius is? Don't know. But I kind of know everything else. I kind of know the angle of the track. I know my intended g-force right here. I know my velocity. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at something called the arc length equation. And if you remember back, if you ever took geometry or trigonometry, something like that, you learned what a radian was. And a radian is simply what is the angle here if I take a unit circle with radius of 1 and I trace out 1 on the circumference of it and then bring that back. What's that angle right there? And that is the angle we call theta, and it's equal to 57.3 degrees. All right, if you also remember, and you go 2 pi times, you get a full 360 degrees. So if you've ever seen that 2 pi is equal to 360 degrees, that is why. All right, so if we take a small section of this, like the length of our track here, a very small delta, we call it. So in our case, we're going to use 1-inch sections. We're going to come up with a small change in our angle here and a radius. Whoa, hey, look, radius, and we need a radius over here. So we're going to take this equation right here of how they're related and put that here. So our change in our pitch angle, this is the angle up and down as we go over hills and stuff, over our small change in track length, we now have an equation. All right, so what, Corey? Who cares? All right, and that's where I'm going to introduce us to our good friend. Everybody's going to want to say Euler. His name is actually pronounced Euler. He came up with a method of integration in very general terms. And basically what it is you take the point that you're at now, and you take a small point just a little bit ahead of that, and you calculate a function and calculate what that next point should be. At that point, you do the same thing, substituting the new value in and calculating the point just after that. So we have this point yn, and then we can calculate yn plus 1. We take yn plus 1, and then we can calculate yn plus 2, so on and so forth. And we could calculate a whole roller coaster, huh? Pretty cool. So what we're doing here is we're going to take our initial theta. So if we have a launch track, we'll just assume that's 0. At the end of the launch track, we're going to have a velocity. We're going to have what we want to do here. Maybe we want to go up. And then we're going to calculate it over a small length of track. Let's say this is 1 inch. This s to the n minus 1 over minus sn is 1 inch. And then we can calculate what the next point is for our pitch angle. So are we going up or down? If it's a positive c value, we're going to go up. If it's a negative c value, we're going to go down. At this point, we can now get to our x and y coordinates, x being lengthwise and y being vertical. We can calculate what is the length of our hypotenuse, this 1 inch increment, times the sine of the angle will give us our vertical one, our vertical dimension. And the cosine here will give us our horizontal dimension. I know, right? Akash is saying, woo! All right. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so calm down, everybody. Excel saves the day. It saves the day. All right, so all we need to know is what we want. We want a section length, we want a beginning g-force, and we want an end g-force. So all we have to specify are the things you see here. Section length, one beginning g-force, and then end g-forces. All right, we're going to go ahead and calculate our C1, C2, and our initial x and y positions, and we can go ahead and plot them on this curve. So here is a generic coaster that I came up with. We're going to start here at the top. We're going to go down our lift hill, and I've specified that my NG force over a 16-foot length, which happens to be this point, will throw me out of my seat with a -1/4 G force. I'm going to sustain that for a length of 2 feet, as you can see here. And then I'm going to start transitioning over 5 feet into a 3.5 positive G. So I'm going to be forced into my seat up until this next point, which is 30 feet later. Then I'm going to transition to a weightless hang time top of the loop here, and then start building up some G's, go into an airtime hill. And it's important to notice that this airtime hill is a -1 G. And if you look at this and compare it to the airtime hill and Maverick, man, they look almost identical. So pretty cool way of doing this. You'll notice here that I was trying to make this look funny. This is really a funky looking loop, so maybe not the right thing for you. But it does look funny. You know, the closest loop I can think of is Copperhead Strike, where you got that first loop out of the launch, and it kind of, you know, you hang there. But it's definitely more circular than this one is. So they did a lot different work on that. But look at that. It was able to... we were able to take some of the mystery out of how to make a janky transition and turn it into something smooth. Well, that's great, Corey. What do we do about something that we actually want it to turn? You know, how do we make this transition right here up at the top of Vortex? All right. The funny thing about turns is they're very easy to do. The problem is they're very hard to get in and out of. If I think about a strictly horizontal turn, if I go into a turn at let's say 10 miles an hour and I have an 8-foot radius, I can calculate what my bank angle should be. However, if I think about when I start banking, I'm going to start on a straight track, and I'm going to have to go and start banking that and start turning it in at the same rate. And that's really kind of hard to do. I'm not sure how I would do that going out to my backyard and start bending stuff. I can bend constant radius tracks, but I can't really get them in and out of that very easily. So we're gonna face the same challenges with loops and other transitions in the vertical dimension. We're going to experience that with our turns. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our radius equation that we had before, and we're going to drop out that minus cosine term, and we're left with this much smaller, simpler equation right here. The other thing that we need to consider is we only want our velocity component to be the horizontal velocity. If you think about a ride like Phantom's Revenge, where you have that giant curving drop, that changes things because your velocity is picking up as you go down. However, you don't have a large turn radius to deal with that because a lot of your velocity is in the downward direction and not the horizontal direction. So what we want to do is multiply our velocity times the cosine of our pitch angle. So as we're going further to vertical down, our horizontal velocity is going to become closer and closer to 0. The second question we need to ask ourselves is, where do we want to calculate our centroid, where we're turning at? So if you think about old coasters, if you think about an old aero coaster, you may be as tall as this guy is to the track. And a lot of times they bent the spline and then made the track match that. So as if you can imagine that, that's even further below the track. So you're like this guy here that kind of looks like George Camel from Dave Ramsey, you know what I'm saying? And by the way, keep your cell phones away on the ride. Man, I hate it when people get stopped. Oh, they got to stop the whole ride because somebody's got their cell phone on. It irritates me. You're just going to hit somebody in the head with it. Put it away. Anyway, so you can imagine how unpleasant this is coming into a turn where you're upright and then all of a sudden it yanks you over. And now you're over there and you got a hard over the shoulder restraint. That just doesn't feel good. All right, so why would they form it like this? Well, it was easy to form. Back in the days, before the 2000s, we really didn't have computer numeric controlled machines, especially in the pipe forming realm. They weren't widely available. We didn't have the computing power to do this. And as a result, led to a lot of headbang. A lot of people don't like aero coasters for this reason. New coasters, though, they call this heart lining. You can see it in a lot of coasters. We're going to look at one called Storm Runner here in a second. And we can do this stuff because CNC forming abilities make this possible. And it leads to absolutely smooth transition. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the exact same things we did before. Here's our equation. Now we're introducing a change of coordinates. So we have an XY coordinate here. That's our horizontal plane. So we're looking at a top view when we calculate all this. But once again, I'm going to simplify this with Excel in a minute. So we have similar equations. This time we're going to use the Greek letter phi to calculate our yaw angle. So this would be looking down is turning left or to the right. A negative number here would be turning to the left. A positive number would be turning to the right. And this is our new equation. And once again, sine and cosine of the angle phi. And we come to Excel. So we're going to add, here's our original section right here. And here is our new section. We got, look, it's almost the same form. But now we can, as we're going down our coaster, we can start turning to the left, or to the right actually. And then as we're going down, we can turn back to the left. And you can see here we got our X's for vertical segments, and then we have Y's, the green dots, for where we're making our turns. So this kind of a big S turn starting right at the end. This would be something like you see in Intimidator 305 or whatever they're calling it now. I call it Pantera now because it's a combination of I think it's Panthea and Raptera that are right next to each other. So of course they'd be called Pantera. You know, if anybody knows the Cowboys from Hell reference, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, Logan, I'm going to come to your question here in a minute. I like it, Kosh. My freshman brain is not capable to understand this yet. It's okay. You don't have to understand it. All fun stuff. All right, so let's see the difference, right? It's one thing to talk about it. Let's look at it. Okay, here we have on the left, Loch Ness Monster right before you go into that monster helix. All right, you can see that they just looked at that spline and said, okay, it needs to curve to the left. Hey, let's bank the top tracks in a little bit and probably form it. They may have even formed it with a acetylene torch. Back in, what was this built? 78, I want to say. It's either 76 or 78. I can't remember. Very, very janky. It's a good thing that they have a brake run right before it, because if you had too much speed going into that, you're definitely going to bang your head against the headrest on the outside side there. All right, now, the way I can only describe this ride here is the old man in this that designed this, looking at this guy saying, What the heck are you young fellers do? Get off my lawn. But this is Storm Runner. Raise your hand if you bid on it. Okay, just clap. Clap. Yeah, we got some Storm Runner riders here. The only problem with this ride is it's too short. So you enter from right to left here, and you actually do a 540-degree roll up in the air, and then you dive down right here at the end of the ride. It is phenomenal. They call us the snake dive. And the cool thing about this is once you get to about here to about there, the car stays in the same, it's basically a 0G inversion right there where you're wrapping around it. But it looks all janky, right? It's smooth as butter. It is awesome. Hey, look, another aero coaster right here. I think it's Trailblazer. Okay, so very briefly here, if we want to get from the centroid to the heartline point, this is where we're going to put our head up here. And this is where our left track and right track are going to be. And this is the math you would use to do this. So if you want to do this, you know, you can pause this and take a picture of it and calculate it yourself. Let me get the cursor out of the way. Go ahead, take your screenshot. All right, moving on. All right, last thing here, we're going to add rolls, right? We're going to make this a tremendously awesome backyard coaster by adding rolls. And yes, I have plans to do this on my own backyard coaster, which will be the fourth iteration of my coaster, which will be the final version of Tilly's Terror. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite rides, actually my second favorite ride. This is Twisted Timbers over at King's Dominion, and it's got a lot of fun right here. So we have a barrel roll drop, and then it'll go into the later half of the ride, which has an outer banked turn by probably about 20 degrees. Phenomenal part of the ride. You think you're going to bank to the left, and you end up banking back to the right. And then you go into the final barrel roll. So how do we make these? Good times right here. All right, everybody put your hands up. Whee! Get on! All right, so that's the barrel roll drop. And the outer bank turn there. And then into a final barrel roll. I've heard that if you look up when you're going through that, it's pretty freaky. Yeah, do that, look up. All right. So let's learn what not to do. So this guy, and I mean, not the concrete dummy that's in the cart right there, the guy on the ground in the red jacket, his name is Will Pemble. He is a backyard coaster builder. This is his glorious creation. I think he's built 5 or 6 coasters now. I know of at least 4 that he's built. And this time he decided to try a barrel roll. So let's see if we've learned anything that will tell us why this didn't work out.
Which means that your head whips around and there's just like a whole lot of energy. It's not comfortable. It's borderline not safe. Utterly scary. Oh, oh.
Man. All right, let's watch it one more time.
Oh, this looks hard.
It does look hard.
Which means that your head whips around and there's just like a whole lot of energy.
All right, this view is crucial.
It's borderline not safe. Utterly scary. Oh, oh.
I love the sound effects.
I know, Scalidro Man. I-305 has been shut. I went out there for opening weekend and it was closed and we were all sad. Anyway, kids, any reason why this might not be comfortable? From what we've learned?
The thing's too close.
The thing is too close. Yes, they are pretty much putting that heart line at his feet or something of that nature. You can see in that one brief second where they're looking down the barrel roll that his head is on the opposite side of the heart line. So it's the opposite of what an aero coaster would be. Scalidro Man says, looks like Maverick's old Heartline roll, the one that only had one person do it. Actually, I think the reason that one didn't work as well as it did was because they were trying to put in a downward ejector hill in it as well. Don't know if that's true or not. You know, that's one to find out in heaven. All right, so what do we find here? Will didn't use heart lining. His heart was way on the opposite side. You could also tell by his grunts at the beginning and the end that there was a poor transition into and out of the roll. I know this was not formed by a CNC machine because he showed him and his buddy rolling it by hand in another part of the video that I did not show you. So that's where Will has failed. We will dare to succeed. And now we got the math to show us how to do that. Math. All right. Hey, guess what? We're going to use almost the exact same thing that we did before to do this again. And strangely enough, this actually took me the longest time to figure out the math, even though it ends up being the easiest. So here we're going to use our value of lambda, which is the roll angle. And instead of acceleration, we're going to replace it with our roll angle. And it integrates very nicely. And we get a nice curve from 0 to 360 degrees. At the top of the roll, this is where it is going to be the highest roll rate, and then start tapering back to 0. So that'll give us a smooth transition in and out. So what do we do here? We're actually just going to add the extra roll that we want to our bank angle and let that take care of itself. So I've tried my best here to recreate twisted timbers. Now I know my drop is a little bit steeper than theirs. So we come off the lift hill, we go around the corner, we go through a barrel drop into the little bunny hill, into the overbanked hill, and back into the little bunny hill. The same thing up here. We're coming off the drop, barrel roll down, and we curve back around. This is the outer banked hill here. So let's see how we did. Well, we add another section here. All right, so not too much difference. Like I said, you know, the top line, the thin one, is our headline, and the other two are the left and right tracks. You can see my angle here is steeper than this one. But the cool thing is, if you look at the headline track, you can see how it's nice and smooth all the way through it, even though our coaster, the track is anything but. And you can see here that it does kind of make a headline roll right through there, as we would expect. So pretty cool. Math, right? Who knows? I view math the way Homer Simpson views donuts. Is there nothing they can't do? I mean, they stopped a monorail train. All right, so some interesting design considerations here as we're getting towards the wrap up. We got to make sure that our cart can handle our roll. So our maximum roll is going to be in the center at 180 degrees if we're doing a full 360 degrees. So that'll be half of our roll angle. But we have a cart wheelbase. So, you know, let's say it's 36 inches or so. We want to evaluate our roll angle over here based on the halfway point of our roll and the halfway point of our wheelbase. And we subtract the positive part of the wheelbase from the negative part of the wheelbase, and we figure that out. The second one is something on steel curtain, which I also hope opens this year. It looks like they're closer. I know it was closed all of last year for structural reasons, I guess. So you got this cool turnaround here where now you enter it on the top track from left to right, and you jump the track. Oh, wait, no, this is when they were building it. But you actually flip upside down right here, and then you dive down into this and then go through a 0G stall. Now, I'm going to put in my 180 degree roll right here. But after this, I need to maintain the fact that I need to have 180 degrees here, or actually to the end of the ride. Because if I don't, I'm going to flip myself back over either inadvertently or on purpose. So just make sure that you count for that, and you'd find that out once you start plotting it. All right. So in summary, we've hit the end here. Roller coasters are complicated, all right? We all knew that. They got a lot of moving parts. We haven't even gotten into like the control systems or anything of that nature. All right. We need lots of wheels to have good running trains. In fact, on my coaster, it takes 24 wheels for one cart. Now, if I was going to add another cart at the end of this and have them piggyback, I could get away with an additional 12 wheels per train. But yeah, lots of wheels. So simple kinematics is a rough guide, and we can't count on it throughout the whole thing to give us all the information that we want. We have to use calculus to minimize the jerk, and that's how we get a smooth coaster. And heartlining is very important. All right, so if you need more information, please join my YouTube channel. You can click that membership button right there. And we got lots of coaster building. We got some LSM videos, all the fun stuff that will help you make a backyard coaster. Also, check out our coaster building newsletter at mentoredengineer.com/roller coaster and fill out that form. We'll get that newsletter, send it out to you right away. Please check out our store. We got lots of calculators, templates, other things for the engineers out there to speed up your workflow. And finally, if you need help with a work project, please reach out to me on rasmussendesigns.net. You can schedule time with me. You can just go in there and pick a time that works for you, and we can chat. All right, so last thing here, I'm going to send this out. I don't know if I've released this, but this is coaster number 2. It was the Widow's Revenge. We took out the curved drop right here and put a spike there with a reverse launch. So let's watch it.
So this is the first test of the Widow's Revenge of the launch system. We're going to see how it goes.
Oh, sorry. Yeehaw! Yeah. And it really did launch you that fast. Now, I hadn't gotten the brake working at this point, but... All right. Is that it? Not anymore. And that is not sped up or anything. That's full speed. Yeah, no, that's real speed. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Oh, okay. A couple last things. Any of you professional engineers out there, I can give you a PDH if you watch this live. Otherwise, I got to give you a test, and we're not doing that. So if you send me a email at contact@mentoredengineer.com, I can send you out a certificate. Or if anybody just wants a certificate, man, I'll send it out to you. You can hang it on your wall. Get my signature there. It'll be awesome. And then finally, if you are interested, I am putting together a formal spreadsheet for what you saw here. With all the calculating of the pitch, turning, and rolls. If you want to be on the short list of beta testers, send me an email. You can also email me at contact@mentoredengineer.com, and I will get that out to you when I am ready. All right, so now I would like to open this up for questions, comments, sneering remarks, death threats, stuff like that. All right, let me see if there's anybody's... let's see. Skeldro Man said Cobra at Coney Land comes in. I imagine that's Coney Island. Comes in quite close. I haven't been up there, so I don't know. Hey, where do we get the Euler spreadsheets? Contact@mentoredengineer.com. Steel Curtain is back open again. Maybe I got to make plans to get up there. I don't get that far west in Pennsylvania, but maybe we'll see. So it's not the fact that adding jerk in is an issue. It's not how much jerk. It's the way the transition of the jerk. We don't mind, if we're going into curve, we're obviously going to be pushed one way or the other. What we don't want to have happen is that to be sudden where our neck, goes and snaps. So by definition, when we go back to, we gotta go back a ways. That's almost all the way back. All right, so right here, we do have jerk at this point. It's right there. It maxes out there, but it's a constant transition into and out of the jerk. So I don't know if there's a necessary amount of jerk that's too much. We just want it to be smooth. All right, you guys can leave if you want. Just be quiet. All right. Logan says the calculations are meant for a single RV. I'm guessing that's rail vehicle, not necessarily a train. That would take more multi-body dynamics. Oh man, that's a whole another thing. I was trying to keep this in the backyard realm. Yeah, this would be for a single cart. The things that a train complicates is the velocity is the same at everywhere, but your track angle, like your pitch angle, all those different things are happening at different times. So you would essentially have to do an analysis for what is going on at that point that you're at, and then 4 feet in front of it and 4 feet behind it if you had like a 3-car train. And you'd probably design it for the middle train and then go out from there. So that's at least what I would do. I don't know how to handle that. So we don't care about what the C1 and C2 variables are. They're just they're placeholders essentially. What we care about is our beginning acceleration, final acceleration, and the distance that we traveled. Ride vehicle. Yeah. I figured it was. All right. Any more, sneering remarks, anything, super chats, whatever. All right. Well, I'll stay on for another minute or two. Anybody got any final questions? Who here wants to actually design a backyard coaster? Just me, apparently. All right. Feel free to stay on as long as you want. I'll be on for a little bit. Hoping to design industry coaster. All right, where you want to go? And we got, I think, 3 manufacturers in the U.S. that I can think of: the Gravity Group, S&S, and RMC. Track design, yeah. Well, I'll be expecting your email today, Logan. I can get you on the beta list for testing. Set point. What is set point? Yeah, GCI. They're in the Cincinnati area, aren't they? No, that's yeah. All right, cool. Like I said, you can still put comments down below. I'll probably respond to them in turn. But I'm going to log off right here. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all of you coming out and supporting the Mentored Engineer. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.